perspective of an absence is an absence regardless of the absence, and then decide what we're going to do from there, then I think that just makes it a little bit easier, because then you're not trying to, okay, we're not splitting hairs as to, you know, this kid was gone because of this reason, this kid was gone for that reason. Now, granted, medical issues and school-related activities, all of those things can definitely, but with doctor's note, to me, I guess if a parent really wants to take it to that level, then go get a doctor's note for their kid missing however many days.
Well,
then
that's the one
what
that
are
we
gonna
were
do?
working off of like our old attendance, but there was no real way to merge because they had so many different versions, so.
Okay.
Look at her cute little hair, I love it.
It does.
I do. I'm not gonna die. Yep.
Is it easier to do?
I never cut my hair in a way that's gonna be hard. I don't do anything that's fairly high, but it is easy. It's quicker because it's shorter, but it's just.
It looks cute when it's
better.
curled too, so she's
know.
got the curls
We
going.
couldn't find it.
Yeah, curls
I
nice.
know.
It's my natural curl now. Like everything about it, I'm like, huh, this was a win.
I haven't heard that. Did you hear that there was legislation that said kids have to be in the seat so many days or so many?
No, what the legislation is that our school calendar has to either have a minimum number of instructional hours or a minimum number of instructional days, and we meet the minimum number of instructional hours, but that doesn't mean that the kids have to be there for all 900 or 990 days, depending on what level you're at.
She said 900 days.
I mean,
Jeez,
she
Louise.
did hours. She did not 90 hours.
I heard it and I knew it. I'm like, yeah.
Okay, no Saturdays
The
or
hours
Sundays,
that are
no
within the
family
statute,
time.
we exceed those.
There's not
in our
enough time in a year, but you know, we're just gonna live here.
Yeah, we have time built in for snow days and those emergency closures.
So this is the old one, and then again, when you look at the agenda, ISBA had several examples, and so, I linked them all in.
I did like that. I saw it.
The school
Takes the credit.
I always
and then
say,
the petition, that goes
change
to the
it
board.
back and
Was this
never
the one
take
that
it
Dustin
and
just
never-
looked in?
Must have,
Yeah.
must have. This was a proposal.
Yeah, it's Dustin has worked on it, yeah.
No, I like that, because then, like you said, it kind of takes care of the superfluous ones, and then
That just
the ones
says
that
they
are
have to be
hardcore,
there.
then the board will get to see,
There's
and then
no
it's not wasting
He
any time.
ran
This is
last
just
semester based on this.
And they
It just
used
gives
to
you
actually
days.
say that it needed to be
ran
in
our
attendance 90% of the time, and that's
based on
gone.
this.
They don't
And
have
if we
that
did
anymore.
this last semester, we would have 10 petitions.
Okay.
Which is manageable.
As opposed to the bajillion that you had, that
40.
didn't, yeah. The bajillion.
Okay. So in starting with the attendance policy, I do like what you and Dustin drafted. I think it's a good.
It's definitely rough and
That's
there's a
what I
lot of work to do,
Yeah.
but it's,
I love the brainstorming though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask, so there is no
Yeah.
petition process with your policy?
there could be, we talked about it because that's where we were at with that, like in that second offense where they go on probation type thing, it would be probationary with the understanding that probation means that if it doesn't improve, your petition or your credits would be withheld.
Can we just like read through it and maybe you can help me digest and understand
Yes.
some of the languages?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Board of Trustees recognizes that regular school attendance is crucial for student success. Consistent attendance is important because the skills and knowledge gained at school may not always be fully reflected in tests and academic grades. It is the responsibility of both the student and their parent or legal guardian to meet the district and state attendance requirements. Which
We don't know what
we
they
don't
are.
have any, correct?
Well, truancy would be the one.
But truancy is determined by the board, not
Yeah,
by
there is
statute.
no-
Yeah, they took
Right.
they
We
took
talked
the
about that. I've looked for it
they
everywhere.
took
I
the
can't find it.
definition out of the statute, so that's
So that
not there
could
anymore.
change.
So,
It just-
The only
district
state,
attendance
the only state
requirements.
attendance requirements now is the compulsory attendance, where between
Right.
the ages of 7 and 16, you are mandated to be in school.
But it doesn't say how often.
to receive an education.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't
Some,
sound-
some sort of schooling.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
And so in that sense, it's still their responsibility to make sure that they're in some sort of attendance at school. It is until they're 17, they are required. So
To
there's a
be
state
educated,
requirement.
yeah, so it doesn't matter if the parent's doing it, private's doing it, public's doing it,
But we have this policy because there is that
Right.
requirement.
And one thing I think we should be mindful of is that we're grateful when they show up, and we should be doing everything we can to keep them, because as the way things are going,
Right, they can just walk away.
yeah, they can just walk away anyways. There's no requirement for them to come here and attend the school.
Yeah, we talked about last time just really like making our schools the place where kids want to be.
Right.
And incentivizing instead of going the punitive route, that it really is like, because there is so much choice, making this the choice that everybody wants.
Right, and the thing is too, it's not even that with the legislation that came about or whatever, the freedom has always been there. It didn't change the freedom to the parent. The parent has always had the freedom to decide to come here or not. And I think we need to start being more of the proactive, inviting, let's help you graduate. Let's help you get the education we think you deserve.
And that
You
was
know?
a lot of the brainstorming last time about making this the place that they choose.
Right.
Yeah.
But for their friends, for their sports,
Right,
for their
right.
the environment, you know, because they
For their
wanna-
relationships with their teachers
Right,
and
they
with
wanna
the
be
staff
here.
and yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's what we talked about. That's why we were like, we need to have this, do we, because it really is about making our school the number one choice for all parents, because it's a great place to be, you know,
Right.
and the kids wanna be here.
Okay, so I think it should be the district is committed
Yeah,
to supporting
no,
the student. I'm gonna highlight that, meet the district and state attendance requirements, because it's compulsory attendance. So what are we really trying to say if there's nothing that we're identifying?
And that's the question we've had.
Okay.
The whole time.
So,
And what's
I
that never
mean,
gonna be now?
Yeah.
And do we care?
I mean, we wanna say it's the responsibility of the student and the parent to get your butt in the seat in the school.
Yes.
Right.
But,
And
you
coming to
know,
school matters because it's more than just the grade, and I think that's
Correct.
important to say.
Correct. So we'll think about word choices.
Mhm.
Unexcused absences. Any absence not prearranged or verified by the student's parent. We have to go all three, because majority of our policies have all three.
Good to know.
For next time, 'cause you guys can draft more.
No.
Yes, you can. Any absence not prearranged or verified. Okay, so, absences that violate the attendance policy. Any unexcused absence, so any absence that's not been prearranged or verified by the student's parent, guardian, or custodian will count toward the total number of absences when determining if a student has violated the attendance policy. The following types of absences will also count. Other absences may apply as per the circumstances. Suspension, juvenile detention.
Can we stop at suspension?
Mhm.
It's illegal for us to count a suspension as an absence against the child because we are telling the child they can't come to school. So
Okay.
that can't be there.
Okay, and those are like, we talked about this, there's things, codes that we're like, I'm guessing they can explain this one to us and we probably need to do it, but, okay.
Good to know. Juvenile detention,
And that might not
same
be-
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we should just strike through those, just
Oh,
for
so we know
reference.
what
Well,
we talked about.
right.
Because that's something, these are all codes that are in our system right now, and I can tell you right now, some of those codes are counting against our kids when they're absent, it's causing them to get a 10-day letter.
Okay, so we need to make sure
That, and I wouldn't have known to
our
change
IT
that
department
because that,
is
yeah.
aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're in JDC, they don't have the choice to come to school.
Right.
They're actually getting their school in JDC.
Correct.
The same would be said for KBH.
Yep.
Yeah, KBH, and it does also count on our attendance as it is now, but we look at that when we get those, but it's, kind of feels a little bit, like I see the petition sometimes and they come in and say, you know, on it it's written, my child was in JDC for da-da-da, my child was suspended for 5 days and then got sick for, you know, like,
Right.
you put them out for 5 days and now you're
Right.
making a petition,
Right.
but it's, so that it is
Right.
something in our system that, it's messy.
We need to. clean that up.
Absolutely.
I'm putting it on our operations agenda to talk to Chad.
Alright. So a blank reason You mean no
That's a
reasons
code in
given?
our, no,
Oh.
it's a code option, no, it's a code option in our, yes.
Well, that's a fun thing.
So I
We
guess
need to
I
redo the
would.
codes.
Well, I think, did you just pull up the codes in Skyward?
That's what I did.
So I
yeah.
think it's Skyward codes, but we have met with the admin assistants and literally narrowed it down and said you can only use these because we really talked about, okay, so this is what would qualify under the.
I was gonna say your notebook. Take the bottom.
We appreciate it.
Sorry, Josh.
We're not laughing at you, Josh, we're laughing with you.
Paper. Like it all be, so because we wanted it to be calibrated, so, but we could not manipulate the availability of the codes in Skyward. So not all of them, even though Skyward has them, we
don't
can't
use
use
them.
them all.
It would be amazing if we could get every school to use the exact same codes.
Well, that's
so that we
what,
don't-
that's
So
what we
we do.
did.
That's what we do.
Well, the issue is, Lynn, is
We're supposed to.
we reduced, there, in Skyward, there's two things. There's absent type and then there's absent
Right.
reasons.
Correct.
No, yeah.
The absent types is the ones that were condensed. The absent reasons is where there's still,
We're all over the board on
So-
it.
could
so
say
every
verified.
absent reason.
Illness, verified injury, verified surgery,
I
verified,
feel like that's what we.
So Michelle, if you scroll
Yeah.
down real quick.
Okay.
they're all still
On
an
the-
option
on the
because I
very
see them
bottom.
on
Okay.
a regular basis.
Those are all, so every absent reason is somewhere in this document. And I
Okay.
highlighted a bunch of things, and I've talked to Marty a little bit about what we would like to see, but we're only one of many schools. I mean,
Right,
this is
right,
a big
right.
discussion.
But you're saying, so we're calibrated on the codes, but not the reason.
Mhm.
That's what she said,
Okay.
the
So then
type,
we need to
absent type.
tackle, okay.
Yeah, we only have two codes for absent type now, it's verified or unverified.
Yeah, I thought we made
That's
it
clean.
super simple.
But the
Oh.
reason type to it, because you can, and so it shows like a U fine or a V, the V can have these little extra codes after it, and there are because some of them I have to look, like, what does that mean? Oh,
Okay.
CN, oh, counselor, and it's not, yeah, it's,
Okay.
Okay, so we have unverified, but then do we have an unexcused absence as a vacation?
That's was a question. I mean, we talked about this, and you know, they asked me one time. I'm like, no, the kids are picking to go. Like, our teacher's gonna have to reteach all this stuff, get them all the makeup work. Like, you're choosing to do that. We can't be having kids constantly doing that and be okay with it. Then there's also a part of me is like, well, how do you withhold their credit when a parent's making a kid go on a cruise,
Right.
making a kid go, and you want kids to be able to experience that. Now, if they go on a petition one time, really, if you go down like the first offense, it's just a warning.
Right.
So, but what if we have a parent, a family that's deciding to go on a family vacation 4 straight semesters? Like, to me, there is an issue there. You're
Yeah,
expecting a lot of teachers to do a lot of extra work for this kid to be able to go their vacation. We have spring break, we have Christmas break, we have Thanksgiving break, we have summer. Like, we got to prioritize school. But that's easy to say, but are we going to withhold the kids credit because they went to Disneyland for the 3rd straight semester and they're
in
getting A's and
February when
B's in
it's
their
cheap.
classes?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the
Right.
issue is if parents are gonna take vacation, it's usually
When it's
not
convenient for
when
them.
we're out of school because prices are higher.
Or some of them extend our holidays.
Mhm.
Like, we give them 2 weeks at Christmas, but that's not good enough. They're gonna take a 3rd week and they do Christmas and then they go on a trip at the end. And I'm like, why didn't you go while we were out for 2 weeks? But they
it's
choose that
super,
week.
it's super expensive to go over
Mhm.
Christmas. It's much
Exactly.
cheaper to go when
The
the
week after.
holiday's over.
I mean, it'd be interesting. I'd like,
Let's
Ms.
do
Haz,
your
like,
own
what do you think?
Let's do year-round school.
Yeah.
Michelle would love
I
that.
love that. I've
But,
gone to year-round
So
school.
just
It's
to
dynamic.
just to clarify, you guys, I pulled up, we had a rough kind of procedure, so Dustin's right with attendance code, so this is what we have. E is excused tardy, V is verified, U is unverified, D is disability, so like if you had an
Yeah.
appointment or whatever.
504.
Right, like you were missing school because.
But that's
that-
usually related to a 504.
Right, or a medical.
Yeah.
X is expulsion, A is school related, I is in school suspension, O is out of school suspension, S is suspension only for SWD, and W is weather. So that's
And
our
those are,
codes,
those are the attendance codes,
but not the reasons. And we don't address anything related to the reasons.
And there are a ton of them, and it makes it really messy.
So that probably needs to happen.
Then it
So-
must be the reasons that y'all are not uniform on, because
Correct.
some of the things
Correct.
I'm seeing, I'm like,
And
what does
we
this
put it in our
mean?
notes, like when they do the call-in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting anxious just because I think we're adding more to it, to where before it was excused, unexcused. You're excused, we're doctors, and school-rated activities, and then everything else was unexcused. And that's just excuse. For the reason, that's for us when we get the petition right to go through that.
But the
actually,
issue is, and the reason that that's not in there anymore, and now it's verified and unverified, is because a parent can call in and they don't have a doctor's note, but my kid's running a fever, I'm keeping them home. That's verified, but if you're narrowing it to, it has to have a doctor's note, it has to be
Correct.
school related, or it's unexcused, the parent's like, it's not unexcused, I called in and excused it. That created problems, so that's why we went away from the excused and unexcused to the verified and unverified.
Most will just bill. Well, just flipping back to vacation, if you choose to put vacation as a violation of the attendance policy, then I think you need to redefine what an unexcused absence is. Because if a parent is prearranging with school saying, I'm
100%.
taking my kiddo
Right.
out for a week, and they're verifying that the kid's with them,
Then it would be
then it's
excused.
excused.
But that's
Yeah.
why in that sentence, I said the following, or I recommended the following types of absences will also count. So there's an exception to that if that is where we go.
Okay.
But I'm not saying that, that's why I put question marks beside of it.
How much, I mean, numbers man,
Oh my.
when you were looking, did you happen to notice how many kids actually are taking vacations? I mean, during the school year?
Shannon would know way more.
I was gonna
than
say,
that.
I have, just from a teacher perspective, I have a frequent flyer, like Dustin was I have a student that every semester I've had them has taken the last week off of the semester to go to Belize or Costa Rica, or wonderful places, but does put a lot of pressure on the teachers to then get all of their formals and finals. I know, it's crazy, like, every semester I've had her, it's been on a vacay the last week of the semester. I currently have a student that left yesterday to go to Spain for 2 weeks. I have another student that's leaving next week to go to Hawaii for a week before spring break. So just in the course of a semester, I might have 5 kids, and that would be 1 kid per class period. That's gone for a week or more because they're on vacation, which again, wonderful, and that's great and all that, but that's now additional work that me and 5 other teachers have to do for those students because they won't be here while we're all doing the work. So, I mean,
And
I-
see, of
I-
the petitions that have come in, like, it's tricky because some of those kids, they miss their 5 days and then they're never gone again. I don't see, they might miss 7 days, you know, but they don't miss any other days, or they stay under the 10. So to know how many kids are taking a vacation versus how many kids are taking a vacation that puts them over the top because they miss those days and others is 2 different things. When we're talking about the kids that end up violating of my 140 I had last semester, there's probably 5 or 6 at least.
Well, I mean, the reality, I guess, from a layperson's perspective, is that, you know, when you're in secondary school and you're in high school and you're a junior or senior and you're ready to branch out into either college or the workforce, you're gonna take a vacation whenever you darn well want. Not that, you know,
Not
it's
if you're a
gonna be
teacher.
big or far, but I mean,
You might get fired.
you might, but you might not. I mean, you might tell your employer, hey, I need to take XYZ off, and they're like, okie doke. You might not get paid.
you might not get paid, or you might only
But-
have a certain number of hours that you can go do that.
True, but
Well,
I
they're
mean,
gonna say you can't,
vacations
whether
happen.
people are out.
It's-
Yeah.
I think
And
that
it is
it's
inconvenient when it's during the school year, but
But at the university level, they can't just disappear for 2 weeks. They would lose credits.
No, not
Yes, you
necessarily.
can.
And they're still allowed, by the way,
Midterm and finals.
they're still allowed
That's
to
right.
take a 9-day vacation
right.
and still meet the requirements. It's just,
Right.
are you taking a 15-day vacation? Lisa?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. And I know elementary is different than secondary, but as a building principal, if my parents came and said, oh, we're taking a family vacation, I never counted that as part of their 10 days, because there's learning that happens that you can't learn in a classroom. When you go to Spain, or you go to Hawaii, or you go somewhere else. And I personally have a little bit of a problem just saying to parents, sorry, we're going to punish you for taking your child on vacation.
Well, I don't
And
know
I would
about that, Lisa.
Wait, hold on. The other thing that I think we have to just be careful about is I can't even tell you the number of staff who have sent me emails this year and have asked to take 5 days because they have an opportunity to go somewhere. So if we're saying to parents, we can't do vacation, then we have to be saying to staff, that expectation exists for us as well. And I've been very flexible because I believe in the ability to take those times and experience something that's different than what we have in Rathdrum. So I worry a little bit about that.
If I could, just going back to my original kind of concern was, my student who went to Spain, I did a completely different lesson plan for him for the 2 weeks that he's gone, because I agree, it's going to be such an amazing opportunity for him that I have put together a completely different thing for him to do than what we'll be doing in the classroom. He'll still be held accountable to certain things, but not to that same level because he won't be there. With that being said, the teachers that leave for their 5 days to go on these trips or 10 days or wherever they're heading, all of their work is done in advance. They have all the lesson plans ready to go. Their students, hopefully, fingers crossed, are not losing learning even though they're not in the classroom. Obviously, probably not to that same level, but to a certain standard. I think the concern, especially, and since I see nothing of it in here, this is obviously just straight attendance being there and whatnot, and to your point too, Michelle, when students are not in our classroom, learning is being missed. And things are being missed. I get that I can give them their handouts. I get that I can give them their worksheet. I get in the business world you can take vacay whenever you want, and maybe you don't have to have a substitute fill in, or maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe you can do your work in your turn or do it in advance. I've not worked in that realm. But with that being said, when students come back from being gone, for whatever reason, there is a certain level of frustration on their side because they're confused and don't understand what's going on in 6 of their classes on a daily basis. I, in my classroom, do quite a few activities during the course of a day. So let's say 6 teachers, 6 assignments times 5, that's 30 assignments that student has now missed. And that's not even talking about the learning process, the being part of the conversation, the dialogue, and all of those things. And so I think where there's a little bit of a disconnect between the attendance versus the presence is, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great that these kids get these opportunities, and I don't want to penalize people for not being, but the penalty comes to us because we make it really easy for them to be gone, and some students are really amazing, and they will take care of business. They'll log on to Google, they'll take care of what's ever posted, they'll come back with questions ready to go, or hey, I didn't quite understand this, can I get your help? And I'll have kids that never opened up their Chromebook and be like, what did we do for the last 5 days? And that is what the issue becomes, and that's where we need to really kind of.
But we do have a policy, I believe it's still on the books, that says if kids are absent, they get so much time to turn things in.
There is no policy. I've looked.
Well, then
all
that's
over the
that's a
place.
piece that's missing, and maybe we identify that here. But
Yeah. The other thing that, as you say
Zero
that,
policy.
because then for those kids, the natural consequence is, yep, we were gone. Yes, we gave you the opportunity to turn the work in, and
Mhm.
sorry you didn't do it. So now your grade's impacted.
yeah.
Right.
Now there's no petition for it because
But there's no policy, and
so we need to put it in
hesitant.
here.
Well, and the other
So
thing
we
that we could tie with this, because we're talking prearranged, is, and I worked in several
But
districts
they'll
that
not-
had this.
not prearrange it.
They know that a prearranged absence form. Like, you hold them to the fact that if you're gonna be gone, you have to plan ahead. You take the form around, you talk to your teachers, they sign off, they give you whatever they can ahead of time, and you'll write right on there what you're accountable for when you get back and what will have to be made up when you return. You know, my daughter did it when she took a 10-day trip to China. Like, and there were things she had to have done before she left with my parents, and when she got back, there were things she couldn't do because it was a test she had to do when she got back.
Yeah.
But that's the only way she was going to get credit for the work she did. And it was, and I was shocked when I came here. I'm like, we don't have anything like this. Like, it just was.
Well, and I think there needs to be
knew.
some flexibility because obviously a kid can't do all of the learning on their own, but But to not
to
have
that
done
accountability.
anything to say, this is the expectation when I return, and,
Well-
but you're right, there is nothing, we've looked in it, I've gone through all the policies, there is nothing
We
regarding
need to
late
have
work,
it here.
assignments, activities, anything. It used to be 2 days from the day you return from an unexcused, or unexcused got 0 credit, and an excused one got 2 days from the day they returned, although somehow that became a 2 days for every day gone, which was never in the policy, but either way, I feel like there still needs to be a certain amount of flexibility there, because I don't expect a student who's been gone for 10 days to have everything done and completed and understanding of it. That doesn't make any sense either, but there has to be some wiggle room there. Of 0 can't have been
Right.
done,
Well, and I
but
had kids that had the prearranged form, and we did all the work and gave it to them and came back with nothing done. So,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You were gonna say something.
Oh.
Did you forget?
Oh no, I just felt like, we love vacations and I do think they're so important. I just kind of think sometimes the guidance of, okay, we're looking at about 10 days as parents, it just provides some banks of the river. So like, I'm gonna plan a vacation, but I'm gonna stagger it with maybe a long weekend or something, and then when we get back, we're gonna make sure we're really focused on making our orthodontist appointments at 3 instead of 10 in the morning,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So I think we can have both things where we're being flexible and allowing families to enjoy vacations and still encouraging them to be in attendance.
Okay.
Because I don't want to say this 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later. I kind of want to go back to I think what Josh was saying is, when I made this document, I primarily went all based on reasons.
Okay.
the codes that
So
are
I
inside.
broke off all the reasons, and if I understood you right, Josh, instead of going through the reasons, which cover 30 bases, 30 different things, probably maybe more than that, if we actually went to the absent types and said verified versus unverified, and we could also potentially talk about the school-related disability, in-school suspension, which are all of those those would not count towards their 10-day violation. We could clean this document up and really cut it down to about, a few different bullet points as far as the excused absent types and all that other stuff, and just break it down versus unverified and verified.
Okay.
Your verified absences don't count. Now, what do those include? We can talk about that, but all of your unverified absences count.
I think
So
your
what is that
verified
not?
still should count toward your 10.
Okay. So
But
that's where it
then
would
if
get a
you
little
do
bit
that,
nice.
it gets
See,
really
I-
messy.
I don't think it
Because that's
should.
where I got 140 petitions this last
Yeah.
semester, and most of them are verified absences.
Right, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
But I'm approving them because,
But it's verified, and so if a parent calls every Friday all year long to say Johnny's at home, it's verified and we're not counting that?
No, you're saying the right thing. You're
Yeah.
both saying the right thing. That it should be counted.
It should be, even if it's prearranged.
Verified, yeah. That's,
count
we
for-
count them, absolutely.
Verified
Now,
just means that we know that they're alive.
Yeah.
They didn't
I'm more
Okay, so maybe
frustrated.
I'm off, then maybe I'm off on that.
I'm frustrated on the unverified, right? That's my phone calls to home is like, I understand life happens. I just want to hear it from you. I want to know what's going on. That's where I get frustrated with kids.
can I play devil's advocate?
Absolutely.
I guess for me, like to Lisa's example, so every Friday, so we're gonna do a petition, and I mean, to what end? Like, if the parent is excusing it, and there's no, what are you gonna say? You're lying? I mean, okay, so then they have to petition, and then they're constantly petitioning, like, it's a hoop
Correct.
to me.
That's all that it is.
Right.
And I come back to this,
So
and this
why?
is
That's why they're
all,
asking about whether we need the.
Yeah.
But
That's
that,
why
so
do
then
this.
why do that?
yeah, again, going back to the policy, why? What, I'm trying to think of the why, but if we're all on the same board, it's like we're, arguing that we're all in the same page with attendance is
But if
important.
we're just gonna
How do
get
you
it, then-
improve attendance? And this policy, I don't
But
think does. You-
that kind of comes back to what I was telling Lisa at the beginning of this meeting, which was we shouldn't worry about any of the reasons behind the why of the absence. You just look at the absence and then you go from here. First policy, okay, you went over 10, doesn't matter why you went over the 10. Here's your notification, please don't go over 10 again.
Yeah.
If you go over 10 the second time, then guess what? We're gonna go ahead and put those.
And then Shannon's got a full-time job.
Oh.
Yeah, I think all of this is
Okay.
a
I
full-time job.
guess if we
The
come back
policy-
to what we
No, and I-
originally talked about, like, I mean, then, you know, again, we're gonna have assistant principals that their entire
Oh,
job
yeah.
is
No,
attendance.
And
But okay, so if we have 1 or 2 kids that have the every Friday, okay, but to what we originally said, and I think Josh made a really good point last time, if our schools are places where kids wanna be and we have engaging lessons and there's this whole community, hopefully, now at elementary, and take out the vacations because you can't control that, but hopefully are there gonna be kids who abuse it, but it's not gonna be the majority, it's gonna be the minority, and it seems to me that, like, it feels like we're writing a policy for the minority and with a lot of hoop jumping versus like, if we make this super inviting and this great place where kids wanna be and it's fun and they're connected and all of those things, and yes, we have some parameters to Shannon's point, like there's a happy medium, then, but why put in hoops? I mean, if we're saying we're gonna do 9 days and every 9 days and we're giving petitions every single, what's the point?
And you gotta take into account with high schools, the time of the year of when this happens, right? You've already got petitions, I've already got 9.
Yeah, I've given 17 out.
Okay.
I'll get 10 more tomorrow.
So
Right.
we're doing that,
Yep.
so
That's a lot of work. to
upholding them
document.
to this requirement right now is a lot
Yeah.
more than that kid that goes at 11 with 1 week to go. So the time of year is different. The individual periods that we're doing. So I've got 1st through 3rd, I got a petition from this, okay? 4 weeks down the road, they're getting another letter and they've got a petition for 4 and 5. And then a week later, they're doing 5, 6.
Yep.
And I've got 3 petitions for 1 kid, and it's a mess. Again, I go back to, I want to increase attendance.
And now you see why we're here.
So I like what
see
you
why
are
you're
saying,
here.
I don't miss work. Why? Not because I love being around Shannon, I do, but I don't miss work because I know that next day is a pain in the butt. So,
And he loves Shannon.
and I love Shannon, but you come back to, I think if we went, again, you can show grace and compassion still with upholding the, okay, you're gonna miss, yep, I get it. But you're still required to do the work, and you have to do the required work in this time frame. If you don't, it's a 0. And if we hold kids accountable, I believe, hold kids accountable that way, guess what, when it's, do I really want to go to school today? Absolutely, I do want to go to school today.
And if we put that language back into the policy, and I don't know why it got taken out, where we
We've looked.
have very
We
firm,
looked everywhere.
we have
When
very
we had
firm
a student handbook,
parameters.
we had it, but then when
Yeah.
the student handbook went bye-bye, it became just board policy attached to different things within the
Well,
school.
I'm
But all of
guilty
that
of that.
should-
I'm grabbing a senior and marching them down the hallway that's got a 58% to Mike and saying, Mike, what can he do right now to, and the kid hasn't turned in any work, has no reason to get an olive branch in his way, but Mike will do the right thing. So we're,
Well, and I think it used to be
But if
when
you
people had their
are
own
missing a
individual
lot of work, you
student
do
handbooks
get
and
buried
people
under the
Yeah,
makeup
absolutely.
work, and
So
then
we
the
made it
natural
universal, like,
consequence of
it's
that
aligned to
is
the
you're
policy.
not gonna get a great grade.
but we
So
get
if
kids
the
buried
policy
in work
doesn't
that are
say
there
we don't
every day.
do that.
But there was
Yeah.
but there was never any policy regarding it.
Right, but if we
Work-
tighten it up so
homework.
that if you're
And it could
5
have
days,
been
you're
like
not
an
gonna
admin
do 10 days,
guideline,
you're
like it
gonna
was a
do
best practice, but
if
it was
we
never.
tighten up the
What I
language.
find is there's a lot of things that we've done or used to do, and
if
it
it's
just was
not
never
turned
written
in,
down.
yes,
And I'm
on the
always like,
third
if it
day
wasn't
or
written
whatever
down,
that
then
is,
we
it's a
aren't,
zero.
like, you just
Yeah.
can't be, because somebody will
What?
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's still a mess on your end,
Who's gonna
right?
do it?
Oh, yeah.
Because now you got a kid
Because
gone
right now
back,
the policy-
or gone 2
Now
days,
you're back.
back 1 day, okay, you got this too, gone 3 days.
So we do have a lot of teachers.
That
most teachers
if
actually
you had a
have
policy
so
set that, okay,
policy.
the makeup day is every
You're absolutely
Friday,
get 2
you
days.
gotta turn in all your work, I think.
90%.
But I don't, I look at this and I'm getting anxious and thinking, now I'm getting the petition, okay, was this a vacation, this one is,
And we have so many
Well, I
kids
think
that
we
are
need to
absent.
get rid of
I think
the
it is different
petition.
than
Well, that's what we
Does
tried
it make you
teachers.
feel like this?
Because now they're-
Yeah, and I
That's actually
think because
part
the
of
end
it.
goal is what? The end goal is to
Our
get
one
them to
teacher
graduate
so they
and to
have
make
that
sure the
set of
grade
time to keep
stays
track
up,
of it.
right?
It's impossible
So
to
that
keep
should
track
really
of
be
that.
the driving factor.
And that the grade is reflective of the knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna
They-
say, I do
Yeah.
want them graduating
Yes.
With
mastery.
Yeah.
So
Like,
that's,
there's
so that's where
competency.
things
Yeah.
get
Well, that's
tricky
what
too.
that's what
about-
I'm saying, the grade and graduation,
Yeah.
that's the whole goal.
Point,
So
yeah.
that should be the driving factor. Everything we do should branch off of that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be
But I
all
think
of
if there's
this.
ways that we can make people's life a little bit easier, that would be
Well, we
helpful
shouldn't,
too.
well, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If these kids that are petitioning are already straight A students, B students,
Right.
why are we doing it?
Right.
What's the point?
Because
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
personally,
had a meeting with parents tonight of one that has petitions for 4 semesters, the other one that this is her fifth petition. I looked right at her and said, I've only been collecting petitions for 6 semesters. So, and they're seniors,
Congratulations,
I mean,
you get the
they're in
same-
this place where like, if you can't figure this out, like what does this mean for your real world, showing up to work, being on time, those kinds of things. But when you're saying that they have solid grades, like
Yeah.
their grades slipped because they'd been absent, they started the semester with a week of vacation. First week of the semester, they started off in the hole. They will probably end the semester with A's and B's. They're that smart kids, but their attendance was 24
Maybe
absences
they should be
first
in
semester.
college and not at the high school. Maybe that's the problem.
It could be.
Yeah,
But
they
if that's what
should
you're
be-
saying,
they
then
should
I'm
be-
fighting this fight and had a really candid conversation
Yeah.
with them and mom and said,
I mean, if
one more
that is our
absent, you're
end
going
goal,
to the
if
board,
we
I'm
have
done.
kids that are mastering
And then you're gonna
it,
turn around and tell me, oh,
and
we're gonna give you your
the
credit.
thing is they're not being challenged.
My credibility went away.
So then we have
Exactly. No, I'm
another,
not.
we have
Exactly.
another
I'm not okay with that.
avenue that we should be getting them down there.
Well, I mean,
Instead
I
of-
think, I would say, like, I can't speak for high school, I'm gonna speak for elementary. We definitely have those kids where, you know, they are super smart, they know it, they're not being challenged. I also feel like we have our teachers do a really good job, like, we have math teachers, we have EL, I mean, they videotape their lessons, they walk through, they have anchor charts, and so you have kids who I think our teachers have done a great job of, and our parents have done a great job of building those soft skills that they will take the initiative and
Right.
they will do it all, and so they can still get the A in the absence of not being there because our teachers have provided a really solid tool for them. You also have the kids that won't access those tools, and so somebody said this earlier, like, I do think it is, there are probably some kids that aren't challenged, but majority of it is, I think we create a platform for them to be really successful because we have so many families, and which is why that self-directed learner policy came about anyways, because families have unique things that are happening, and we wanted to be able, the state wanted to be able to support that. So I think if you were to take away Google Classroom and all the platform that
Oh,
we
yeah.
give
Big
our
change.
kids when they're gone, it would be a totally different ballgame because they would struggle with the material because, again, I mean,
Well,
we
all I'm
literally have
saying
math
is that-
teachers, like our calculus teacher.
Right, well, maybe
she
you
walks them through the
misunderstood
whole
what I'm
thing.
saying. What I'm saying is that I'm hearing these guys are being completely burdened
Oh, yeah.
by this looping
Yeah.
thing with kids who are straight A and B students. So how do we alleviate it? They
I
shouldn't
agree.
have to
That's
do
why I
that.
said why. Why are we doing
Right.
Well,
this?
here's-
Why are
There's
we
no
doing
scenario
something?
where you're gonna tell a straight A student that you missed one too many days this
Right.
semester, we're gonna take your
Right.
credits away.
but why
There's no
not?
scenario for that.
If they've met
Maybe
it
it's
3
really
times,
certain
so I'll tell you
teachers
that
backwards
when I
to
reran the
try.
attendance policy for the adjustment, so I ran the codes the first time when I had all that spreadsheet, there was like 200 kids on it. I reran it with those codes, there was 11 kids on it. With all the, it went from 215 down to 11.
Oh, wow.
And of those 11, and I don't quote me on this because I don't know if I did it perfectly accurate, but I think I did. And that did include vacations, I believe. But those 11, okay, all of those would be on a warning. So all the kids that got straight A's, B's, C, got D's, they got their credits. But now there's a conversation. Those same kids, those same 9, did it again. If you get A's and B's, okay, now here's what's going to happen. You're going to be on probation. You do it again, you're going to lose those credits and your next semester's credits. You don't do it again, you're perfectly fine. You're going to get those credits and your upcoming credits. You do it a third time where you're one of 9 students, you're less than 1% of our student body that violated our attendance policy 3 straight semesters or 3 or 4 semesters. You don't deserve your credits because there is more to a high school diploma than just a grade. And if we don't believe that as a district, that's fine. But those same 11 people have made our teachers put in a lot extra work for them to get those grades. And I don't know if that's fair.
Right.
I don't feel good about it.
That's what I'm saying. If
Well,
we didn't provide that platform with what our teachers do because they always go above and beyond, I don't think it would be.
Right.
There
Our
might be
teachers have had
there
that
might be a
debate.
few, but majority of the kids would not be able to produce that A, B, C because I mean, I think our teachers have worked really
100%.
hard to make that accessible because trying to meet families where they are. Yeah.
And
Well,
what
they
I was
talked
saying is
about-
I was think that holding those kids' credits the small, I mean, that you went from 9, the number of kids that are gonna do that, you're talking about probably 3 or 4 kids. And withholding those credits, I don't think it's the same as withholding 210 students credits. You know, you're down to 3.
Well, and what I like about what you guys put together is, in all fairness, the credits don't get pulled until that 3rd offense, and the parents have the right to appeal to the board. And then that becomes your ability to say what you do and do not agree with,
Right.
and all those things. And I actually think that that's great, because then instead of, you know, Shannon having to bring you 140 different petitions, you know, they've narrowed it down. The parents have been given the opportunity to not put their kid in that predicament, and the kid can also put themselves not in that predicament. And I mean, 3rd offense, I think that's reasonable.
We have to Ramona's point. I mean, I think removing some of the hoop jumping just
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Well, removing, oh, absolutely, I'm okay with
But
that
to
too,
be
but.
fair, like you said that you ran it attendance to this. So we basically just excused a bunch of absences, didn't make attendance any better.
That's
Not
an
improving
issue.
attendance, that's a different conversation.
No,
Yeah.
our ADA,
Our
what
ADA is
happens,
a-
our ADA doesn't increase, the hoop jumping decreases immensely. That's,
Okay, but
But
still, to my
100%.
point, and again, I'm not disagreeing with
the
anything
teachers
you
are still
said.
working.
Yep, and so we're just,
You're not improving the attendance, which is.
I don't know
maybe
that
Changing-
we're gonna be able to create a policy that motivates people to get their kids to school.
Right.
I really
okay,
don't.
and I'm fine with that. I know that that's not my expectation with a policy that we can put some words on paper and miraculously we're gonna have
Right.
100% attendance. I get that.
That's
Okay.
like
But I-
environment.
It's-
Yeah.
My thought was, Josh, is when I was putting this thing together, was thinking, what's something we can actually do?
Right.
Because right now, withholding 250 kids credits, we're not passing any levy if that's the case. I mean, we're gonna be taking out parents
Well,
left and right.
And your
But we
graduation
don't do
rate
that
is
right now.
15 for no, like.
Well, but we go through her stack of papers is why is Shannon dealing with?
Yeah, I'm with you with that,
We're
100%.
doing it on his end.
So we're still doing the I guess
Yeah,
this
No.
your number of petitions goes down to where you're really.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with
Instead
that
of
at all.
talking
Then
to
you
a,
get to
instead
have
of talking to
meaningful
150
work.
kids for 1 minute, it actually gives you an opportunity to
Yeah.
talk to the 10 kids that really need it for maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And really maybe change
Well, and maybe
behavior. I
then
don't know.
you're really having conversations around hurdle and roadblocks as to why we're struggling with attendance. Is it peer related? Is it pragmatic? Like what's happening?
The other thing
and you're
that-
having more meaningful conversations versus
Absolutely.
let me just do the wheelhouse
Bring
of
a
okay,
petition.
next kid with the petition sign, you know, whatever.
And I do think some of the teeth of just the petition and the inconvenience and the awareness is like this last semester we had 17 kids withdraw that had to petition. Like some of them turned their petition in before they withdrew, other of them I never got it, but of my 140 kids that got a petition letter, 17 of them withdrew. Went to Mountain View Online, went to some other online, some of them, 2 moved, but the rest of them actually just withdrew, and most of them are going, like you said, this isn't the right setting for them. So to put that in place and have them have a first strike, second, they're probably not gonna get to the 3rd strike and have to even see you guys when you're like, why aren't we seeing these kids? Because those that are the habitual ones, most of them find a different avenue. They figure out this isn't the right place for them. Even the ones I'm getting that their petition says it's
See, I think
anxiety,
we-
like, well then maybe your anxiety prevents you from coming to a public school setting, and this isn't the right place for you. I'm not denying that anxiety is not real and it doesn't prevent you from coming to school, but 3 semesters in a row, this isn't the best way for you to learn.
Right, yeah, I agree. I just wish we had, and we don't have the tools here, unfortunately, all the tools. It would be nice to be able to meet all their needs,
Oh, for
like
sure.
certain school settings, you know?
Mhm.
But I wish that there was somehow we had a resource we could give these kids instead of them just giving up,
Yeah.
right? That they really could find some education path that does work for them. Because that's my other fear is that I don't want to see a bunch of kids just. I watched that. I'll share a story with you. My oldest son, who was a famous football player at Timberlake, everybody loved him. Right before graduation, they came to me and said, "Oh, by the way, your son's not going to graduate." They took him and his buddies in the office and said, "We think you should just drop out because you're not going to make it." No conversation with me. This is what they did. Well, that didn't work in my house, right? You made a decision, we're graduating, so we enrolled BYU. That's how I knew we used to have an agreement with BYU. And I went to high school, and we graduated. And I watched all of his friends stand in the line and cry with tears, boys, because they took the advice of the principal and the counselors to drop out. I have lots of stories like that with this district. So my point is this, I would really hope that we could find a resource paper to put together so that that doesn't happen to these kids, because I don't want them to give up. I do agree that some kids just don't fit for whatever reason, anxiety, they can't be around, they just don't fit, whatever it is. Because those 17 kids, my concern is I don't want them at 30 to wake up because I still see all these boys in this area and say, they really hate it that they didn't have a parent
that advocated.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I will say, Dustin, I'm going to pick on you for a second. I'm sure it's not. It could still probably be streamlined, but Dustin we were looking at transitioning to Mountain View. How do we open some of this up, and how do we make it? And we had a form. Dustin made the form even better, and that seems to be working. But I feel like we have all tried to really when kids are starting to struggle to what Shannon said of can we tailor Mountain View and give you some additional options and the admin team is really really meeting with the families and just saying, if it's not Mountain View, then what are some other options so that it's not just we're washing our hands free. So I feel like they are doing a really good job, and I pick on Dustin because I feel like for Lakeland, he's the one that sends me the forms all the time, and they're really detailed and super dialed in or whatever, but you can tell he's taken a ton of time with that family and meeting that kid, and I feel like Paul's done a really good job of just this is how we could tailor this, how we could make it work. And so again, it's not perfect, there's always room for growth, but I feel like that's the pathway. We're heading in that direction, and so
it was sort of a side thing, but it sort of goes together. I really, even if at some point we create better relationships with NIC or something, just so these kids that don't fit, that we can still
support them.
Yeah, exactly. We could be the answer.
Yeah.
And alleviate this 144
craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just.
And unfortunately, I feel like this will be easier for high school. Elementary will be harder because there's no petition, there's no credit.
And there's no scenario where the child is the one making the decision.
Right.
I have really heart-to-heart conversations with these kids as they approach. And it's that whole. Some of them I get that your parents are the reason. It's tardies. It's all of those. And Dustin did the same thing. He did tardies last year. I'm doing them this year. How do you get to school? Okay, your mom doesn't get up in the morning. Who can get a ride with a friend with? We are doing those things with these kids to try and get them to be at school and be on time. It's not just here's your letter. Hope you get your credits.
You guys do a great job, and I know.
And Josh and I talked. We're doing a lot of the same work. It just is. Some of it feels futile. There are some of those conversations where you had influenza and then it turned to bronchitis. Here's your form, sign it, bring it back. Don't worry. And I have kids that come back. I have parents that call me because kids go home after they see me, and I try to be so kind and gentle when I know the situations, and they're stressed because the letter says your credits have been withheld, and they're in tears, and the parents are calling me what do we need to do? And I just feel like there's some of this that doesn't need to be happening.
We need to fix that then. Yeah, I agree. We need to fix that. Because
Josh, what's your overall thoughts on what you would like to see?
I just don't want to do busy work. I'll have 4,000 conversations. I'll sign up for that any day of the week. I'll meet with parents any day of the week. But I'm tired of doing the busy work.
Hoop jump.
And I know they're tired of doing the busy work. You get those kids that are, and we make them petition for any reasons that, even though I know the bronchitis. Yep, I get it. So we get the multiple petitions coming in, and we have kids that are just sickly. It happens, and they won't even hoop jump anymore because the reasons are sick. Before the first petition, they would write out, and now it's just I'm sick. Yep, I do.
Same deal.
But I'm going through the deal again.
You know.
I've got. We all got our plates full, If this would take some of that off the plate, I'm 100% on board. But it's still, I think, to
Lynn.
Lynn's point, sorry, you know,
Okay.
down there.
Sorry,
Come on.
Is I think we have to make a concerted effort, a comprehensive effort for the school district to increase enrollment. We gotta have campaigns for enrollment, for attendance, sorry. And then this, we can get through. I'm confident that we're doing the right thing and Lakeland's doing the right thing. Confident all schools are doing the right
I
thing.
think
It's
we're all
just not-
saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
100%,
how you craft
yeah,
this
yeah.
Can
in
I,
a
can I
narrative
just ask,
that
can I ask the two of you a quick
captures that.
question?
Yeah.
In the years that you've been, since we put this back in
Mhm.
place, and you've been doing the 150 to 200 petitions every semester, how many times have we withheld credit?
I've done it with freshmen twice. We've had kids that we've not had to walk once. It's been very seldom.
Here's the problem with holding credit, is we did it, brothers that were sophomores, withheld credit their spring semester. And then so you're withholding this credit. Actually it was the first semester, they did the same thing and you're like, no, I mean it this time. So you withhold it there and then you're sitting at the start of the fall, what classes do we put them in? Because they've already taken
They've already
these
taken
two
those
that they've
classes.
gotten passing credits for, but you're withholding them. So now it's okay, we're gonna put them in
I'm
this.
gonna retake a
And they
class I
called my
passed.
bluff every single time. Getting back to that, after those we learned, we've withheld credit one time and learned the hard way that that grade disappeared once we put that credit back in. So we're we learned
you're
that
going
one,
to
we're
hand
starting
down
to
what
write
they're-
down stuff. So getting back to your question, 1, 2, 3, 4, I've done most recent withhold credits for seniors for fall semester and met with parents and got them on board that, you know, they have to comply or they're not gonna graduate. And we, with the caveat, if they're applying for colleges, that I would put the grades in there because I don't want that when you're sending off your transcripts. So 6. How's that for an answer that took me 5.5 minutes?
I guess another reason I asked is I don't want us
1 to
to
9.
create a policy that we aren't actually following. We're not
I also
following.
feel like.
Well, and I
That's
think a
what
lot of our
they're
kids that I
at
would
now.
have withheld credit on, when we get down to it, there's no credit to withhold. There have been times when we were,
Right.
like, I was gonna withhold the credit,
Yeah,
and
they're
I'm like,
failing
oh, they're failing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, we don't put the
A
withdraw
lot of
in
times
there
Correct.
because we leave the F in
Correct.
because it's the
Correct.
same.
Yeah, that's
So
the
when we say
natural
the,
consequence
yeah, the
of
natural
missing that much
consequence
time.
has caught
Mhm.
most of those low-end performers,
No
but it's
doubt.
very
The
few.
kids
But
are
I
going up
also
with the credit
feel
anyway. The kids
like
that get the A,
we
you
have
don't
to
want to
get
take the
back
credit away.
to
So
our
Right, that's
word
what's hard.
matters, and if we
100%.
say it, then we have to follow through with
Right.
it, because like when you said, well, they
We withheld
they
your
called
credit.
my, they called
Well,
my bluff.
this last
Like, well,
one,
then with everything, I mean, that just permeates out, so like if we say that we're going to do it, I feel like our word and.
But I think we have to have a
what
plan
say
for it,
should
because if
matter.
you withdraw a credit from a class they passed, now you're putting them back in to Algebra 1, and they already
No.
passed the class, but they don't have the credit for
Why
it,
wouldn't you just put them forward?
and they just have to take extra math
Well,
classes
yeah,
later.
and if they miss, they gotta go back and make up the credits online anyways. would just
I don't
put
know,
them
but it
forward.
just is, like, they don't have
not
algebra credit.
online if you're a young kid, particularly with the math, that you only have to do 3 years of math.
But you have to pass algebra both
Yes.
semesters
Correct.
and
Yes.
geometry.
Correct, yeah.
But if you
In
withhold
the
the
third
credit,
year
they
month.
don't have credit in algebra, which is a graduation
They
requirement.
have the grade,
Yeah,
so
but
they technically passed it.
but you're gonna withhold it,
How's that work? I don't know.
assuming that they meet the credit, or they meet the attendance requirement
No,
the next.
when we've
well,
withheld, in the past, when we withheld it, we withheld the credit, they
So
just didn't
according
get
to
the credit.
this, second offense is that that semester, that the second time they did it, they would get incompletes for all their grades. Now the next semester, if they meet the attendance requirements, they would get their credit back from the previous
Right.
semester and the current semester.
Mhm.
If they don't, they go to an alternate placement program where they have to go back and make up the second. They're gonna go back to a
You're
different,
saying
you know,
like via
online.
summer school or via.
Mountain View
yeah.
Online.
And again, we're dealing with 11 kids. A question for you, of those 11 kids, were all of them passing?
Classes.
Natasha
We didn't-
Hollis, I don't know. we
Oh,
didn't-
yeah, I'm sorry, Natasha.
Easy with
Yeah.
them.
Oh, shit, was-
Yeah.
I thought that's why you always sat there, because I see you looking up at
But
the camera during.
to that point, and to Ramona's regarding the straight A student that we might have to keep
Yeah.
credit
See if
from.
I can get Maria to-
With regards to that, there is something that Coeur d'Alene does that could also help that situation, which is that their students have to pass their end of course assessment or final with a 70% or better, which would then take a little bit of the onus off the teacher to have to bend over backwards, puts the onus on the student to actually do the prep work, and if they truly are.
I'm up for that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
so I mean,
great.
at least there's
Yeah.
then we're not worried about,
Well,
if they
I-
pass it, they pass it, they get the credit, they don't pass it, they
I
don't get the
think
credit.
I mean, again, back to what we talked about, I think Dustin said this, I mean, a lot of this is not just about the grade, it's about those soft
True
skills.
story, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
making kids understand the accountability side, the follow-through side,
Agreed.
the work ethic side, all of those things. So it's about, we're building everybody's capacity to
Right.
be a functioning adult when they graduate,
Correct.
moving forward, depending on whatever field they go
Yeah.
into, whether that's, you know, whatever.
But this could
The
also play a
numbers
role
kind of
in that
arbitrary.
idea that if they pass the class, but they don't get the credit, I think that could be part of that puzzle piece, perhaps. Because did they truly pass the class if they didn't pass the final type of situation? And then that puts a little bit of added teeth into that, as opposed to them just getting the daily work taken care of and maybe, half, winning the exams and then kind of going from there,
Well, I
so.
wanted to pop back to your, holding kids accountable even if they have the A's and B's
Mhm.
on the third offense. Why would you not, when they hit a second offense, say, hey, let's look at self-directed learning? So that the district is.
And we're doing that with all of my kids on the whole list.
So on the bottom.
I sent it to my counselor.
139.
I didn't do the work, I sent it to the counselors and said, your section of the alphabet. Please identify which students would be a good candidate for self-directed learner. The number that actually meet our criteria is very small.
Well, and I realize that
Which is-
because.
So do I need to
Shocking.
bring that policy back?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we talked
We're
about
sorry.
that last
For-
night.
Well, we were talking
Lower
about it the other day,
self-directed
and
learner
there's, I mean, it's a
would be
good
an
policy,
excuse
but there's
for
some
absence,
things
Give
that.
us some-
So those kids would never even be.
They're not ever counted absent.
Yeah. They
Right.
would, they would never even be.
Which
a
helps
part
our
of this.
ADA.
No, but what
But
I'm saying is if you've got
not
these
really.
students that are violating and then we've crossed over and now we're moving on to our third offense, why aren't we having the conversation with them? Look, your grades are good. I don't want to withhold credit. I think
Yeah.
you need
Yep.
to do this program.
100%. And that,
And I've
so a
had
lot
that
of those
conversation
kids,
with kids this semester as I hand them the petition, and the problem is we look at it together,
Yeah,
and they, for different reasons, they don't qualify.
okay.
So.
I
Well,
just
what
have
are
it
those,
as a list.
are there common reasons that they don't, or we can fix the
The
policy?
GPA a little
the
bit
GPA
is
is
the
probably
they're
our biggest
high,
hiccup.
and like we had a conversation about a student that I have who I think would be a phenomenal, the absences are gonna continue, that's never gonna stop
Yeah.
because of the
It's a
situation they're
medical
in.
thing.
But they're truly an amazing kiddo in which when they're gone, they do check the Google, they take care of business. When they come back, they say, hey, I noticed you handed out something, can I get that from you? They take care of it right away, they come in and take their assessments. I mean, I went to her, I said, but sadly because they're a freshman, at the beginning of the semester, that wasn't something that was on the radar, and so due to attendance and missing things, they didn't get the highest grades in certain classes, which would make sense because of those classes are really hard if you're not there. And coming back and trying to make up that stuff, they did their best and they did well, but they didn't get to that.
Not enough.
Not enough to get to that
I think
3.3.
we can
So
adjust that.
if we can,
Yeah.
Can we just say we look at like the previous semesters?
but they're not if they're not in high school, then it makes it a little trickier.
But it's
GPA is
still for
pretty high.
still for freshmen though.
Well,
it's
we did
high.
talk about it. I've had several
Yeah,
teachers
it's
give
almost
feedback,
a
even if
4.
it's like three, it's a 3.3.
3.3.
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
3.3. I think a 3.0 or even
We could,
maybe
yeah, 3.3, 2.8.
I
2.8, that's what I was thinking,
What-
because
What'd you say?
I said
2.5.
2.5.
Well, and here's where, when I'm putting these two pieces of the, because I'm doing
I like
self-directed
easy.
learner and I'm doing, those are both in my wheelhouse
Yeah.
right now. The kids that are, I think, candidates for self-directed learner that aren't making it, they're, or the parents that come to me and are like, why are we not gonna have credit? They have A's, B's, and C's. They just might happen to have 2 C's and only 1 A, and so now they're at a 2.8 or a 2.9.
Yeah.
They're not a 3.0, but they're a solid student.
Yeah.
They're not an
So
A, B honor
Josh
student,
asked
but
a
they're a
great
solid.
They're
question.
solid.
Once you qualify as a self-directed learner?
No, it's
do you have-
yearly.
do you have- It's annual?
Mhm.
It's not by semester?
No, it's
Okay, and
yearly.
isn't it the principal and the teacher that signed off, or they're the ones like checking on it?
Does the policy say they have to reapply every year?
Yep.
It does?
Mhm.
I don't remember us putting that in there,
So
cause,
It's
we
right
probably,
on.
I
now
would
that
hope
we're
they
getting
would
more,
reapply.
we should
yeah,
clean
we might
that
need to
up.
look
Well,
at
and
that.
I-
2.5.
There's all kinds of things that
Because the language in the law says that as long as you continue to meet the criteria, you continue to be a self-directed learner. And if a staff member starts to see that
That decline.
they're declining, then there can be a conversation, or if the parent does. But
The way ours is written, I mean, it sounds like, even if that wasn't the intent, that it's a reapply each year.
yeah, that's not the way the language in the law is.
Well, I'm glad you guys are bringing this up. These are things I like to personally hear anyways, because those are simple things that can be fixed that
Yeah.
And we knew that
are
was coming
so
because the
good for
self-directed was
you
the-
guys, they're good for the students,
It's
they're,
a
I mean, it's
win-win.
just a,
Yeah,
and
for
it's a
sure.
simple fix.
Well, it's great for
I-
our families.
yeah.
I wasn't part of that conversation for that policy, but I do think that.
Well, you're
even though
gonna
it
be
was a-
now, cause we're bringing it back.
Perfect. It did say only one teacher recommendation, and I do disagree
That's
with
the
that. just as-
language in the law.
Understood, but I think that all teachers should be at least part of the conversation, like we would be for an IEP or a 504 situation, in the sense that I may not have to be part of the recommendation process, but I think I should still be part of the conversation as far as what is the why behind it and what does this mean for that student, because we get teachers that are being told they have self-directed learners who have no clue what that means, and they don't know what the expectation is for them. And for me, I have students in my class that I think would be excellent candidates for a self-directed learning situation, but in the same respect, they don't necessarily meet the requirements, and so as a teacher, I'm like, I would like to recommend this person, and here's my why, and then maybe send it out to the other teachers to say, would this person also be good in your class as well? So,
Which we brought up at a staff meeting and asked teachers to let counselors know if they would fit. Like, we're trying to make this out there.
Yeah, and I do think the other part of that is
John.
for those kids who are kind of high achieving,
Another
maybe don't
big
try so hard on the
conversation that I
ISATs
think
because it's
it would
long
be a
and
good
hard.
question, a good
If
discussion
they know
would
that
be,
this is the
is 10% the right
outcome,
number?
Either proficient or advanced, I do think.
Yeah, we
kids are
always
kids
were on that 10%
actually
because that was the
put
state
effort
statute.
on that.
I couldn't find it
So
anywhere.
where I did see, and this just came out, is that 10%, whether it's not the state statute anymore, it is around our standardized assessing. So like for ISAT and for IRI, there is a 10%.
Yeah, they pull out kids who are not in 90, who don't have 90% attendance
So-
over the year,
Do we
so
want-
that our teachers are
So-
only held accountable
I
for
mean,
the kids who are truly
I'm going to
interested and
just
present.
qualify, they say they do.
I know, because I've never seen that in any number that comes to us. I'm like, okay, but where's the number? with
The
all
language,
these? Like, I
the language
have
is
these
definitely
kids.
there.
The language is
Yeah.
there, and that's
Yeah.
where, so I don't know if that used to be in statute, but I mean, we just got something, from the state, just kind of going over the assessment and then the fact that the IRI is gonna change, and then talked about how, like, that
It's-
10%
yeah, it just is no
attendance,
longer
and, you know,
statute
like, you got to be in
anymore.
school for
We
this
wrote
amount of
attendance
time, and we
policy
count
for
this
first
number, and this is
So-
what they
But
do,
you
so
gotta come
that
with
is for the
taxes.
ISAT and the IRI,
It must
it's
be the
supposedly,
It's a national
we're
thing.
judged based on the 90% rule.
So do you want to recommend to have that number for the attendance policy?
This team gets to recommend.
How do they know, number one? I'm just curious. I mean, because
They,
if the
they
kid
do
is-
pull,
They
they
pull
do,
it-
they
they
pull
pull it
attendance
from-
from Skyward, from IC, that's student
It's an
attendance.
IC upload, right? They say
Yep.
they do.
Well, I'm,
You're that one day.
we're going from 200 to 10. I think 90% is the.
We can always get a point and ask them for those records.
If that's the direction we're going.
But you know, like when they have to
It's
pull
one
our
or the other.
attendance for our funding, like that's where they pull it from the upload, so I mean, they would have access to it, but I feel like when they give us those qualifiers of students that would not fit, and I can only speak to the IRI, when they give us those qualifiers of that would not meet those parameters, so then when we calculate it, yeah, it never matches.
Oh yeah, because even when
Ever.
Terry and I were teaching first grade so way back, I remember being like, well, if we really followed that, then our number would look
A little bit different.
Right, so, but they say they.
Or
you
sometimes
know,
it's worse. Sometimes it's your kids. who
Maybe they,
score
maybe,
high.
Maybe somebody
It's the
should ask
secret
them,
numbers
how
that
did
they
you
don't
get
tell
this?
us.
Because this is what we get, we're obviously calculating wrong, so how do you get the number? We should ask that, because maybe it's just something that was put in the system and nobody's really checked it, and then just keeps spitting out
Lisa's gonna do
things.
it right now, especially because we're gonna have a new IRI, so.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is something gets in there and as people change and things I mean, you know, it could just be that
Yeah.
nobody's really verified that it
Are we going
actually
to it?
is.
Yeah, or do you just pull it from the
I've
clean
heard that.
report?
I've heard it, but
It
it's
is what
with
it is.
confirmation.
Yeah, and it's, cause,
Lisa,
Yeah, and if that's the
you
case, then they need to change
went
the
from
language.
updating Skyward,
yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
We have to.
like next year.
It's gonna happen over the summer, we have to.
What do we have
Are
to
we
do?
gonna be doing a PD over it?
Yep.
What are you talking about?
Skyward.
Sweet Sesame.
Oh, the-
You're running it, I thought.
You're the trainer, Josh.
Give me a day on it, and I'll do it.
Oh, just one?
one.
He's that red.
I think in the end, when it comes down to our attendance policy, and yes, we want to encourage people to be there, we want them to want to be there, all of those things, but unless the state is going to switch us to enrollment versus ADA, we have to find a way to make them be there because
Yeah.
we're losing money for them. And I know that sounds really like
$15,000 a
cutthroat, but that's, you know, that's the truth.
And
So,
I will tell you, not to be the Debbie Downer, but in the 6 semesters I've done this now, I did optimistically my first semester think, oh, this is gonna get better, we're having great conversations, blah, blah, blah.
it doesn't change.
One group of kids gets better and another group moves in my numbers have been super consistent across the board on
But
that. I'm like, ooh, it's not,
That
it's
needs
just
to be filled.
that percentage of our kids.
And my concern would be
is-
though, I had to again acknowledge that there's no policy that will improve that.
Right.
Does this policy make it worse?
Yes.
Like that, where you're taking a look at,
Right.
oh,
I can just for whatever.
But like,
Absolutely.
let me
I think
just,
it does.
let me give you an example of, I
But
mean,
I think it makes, sorry.
Go ahead, you're good, Dustin.
I think I would predict that this policy, if this is what we decided to, definitely, we would have more students absent. But we'd actually be able to follow through with
With
what
your
we
habitual.
actually do.
And our word would count. But like,
But-
I wanna give you an example.
I don't know.
And this is an elementary example, but so for instance, we talked about, when we moved from enrollment to ADA and yes, incentivizing for funding, but just also incentivizing. The more our kids are there, the more connected they are, the more community they're building. School is just a great place for them. They're more successful. Grades are better. Their peer relationships are better. All the things, right? And so when you walk into Spirit Lake, and I don't know this, so don't quote me, but I think out of elementary, Shine has one of the higher attendance, like weekly, monthly, overall, because they're doing all this spontaneous stuff, and she has a chart where she's charting like where what each class is, and the teachers are doing all these things, and yes, they've made attendance a priority, but she has these surprise days that the kids don't know about, that they're going to do fun stuff. And so she has just, and this is just one example, there's every building, lots of buildings are doing different things, but just one example of they're really trying to get the kids connected. So, literally parents will call and say, my kid doesn't want to miss school. They have a doctor's appointment. You're not going to do the surprise activity, right? Well, because and it's just this fun. They want to be there. So I think let's take away the hoop jumping. I think this language we should probably link in the self-directed and have merge those. So I put it on our agenda so that next time, because we only have 20 minutes left or whatever, that we can start, maybe we're blurring those lines in the sense of the language, what we have in there, we fix some of that and it's in here. But we also then, what are some ways at each grade band where we can make our schools the first choice? Because in addition to funding, we also, parents have choices, and if we don't make ours the place that people want to be, they can go other places. So let's make ours the absolute best, and not just from our perspective, because I do think we are the best, but from our kids' perspective, they're super connected. It's community. Parents feel welcome coming in. They feel like we're coming alongside all the things. We're going to have those 1 or 2 percenters that, whatever, but I don't want to write a policy or have our practices be about the 1 or 2. I want it to be about the majority, because we have really great families. We have, we're doing really great things. And how do we showcase that? How do we campaign that? To what Josh was talking about. So I think we can do it and make our lives a little bit easier and make our word count. So when we say it, we follow through.
Make it easier to be a part.
Yeah.
Because there, you have to remember, we have a huge, my kids were dual enrollment kids, but I have to tell you, it wasn't easy to be dual enrolled in this district at all. So I think we have
I'd have to say real quick, as being in this district for 25 years, I think it's a struggle for the North versus the South, because being dual credit at Lakeland High School is extremely easy.
She's talking dual enrollment.
Dual enrollment.
Like homeschool.
Not dual
and-
credit.
Oh, okay.
So
sorry. Yeah,
could you
I
explain that? What do you
I don't
mean it was
understand.
difficult for you to dual enroll?
So, I was, in my world, homeschooling wasn't the common thing I hear in the district about homeschooling. In my world, we did actual curriculum school 8 to 2, we did testing, we did everything, right? So I had testing from the time my children started school, kindergarten till think our one son was, 9th grade, yes, when he wanted to go to Timberlake for geometry, I think it was that year. Anyways, they wouldn't accept my testing, they didn't want to hear any, I had CUNY folders. I ran a school in California, I was a registered school. I had everything you had to be a school. None of it was acceptable. They wanted to make him go back a year, and put him back to 8th grade. And because they didn't want to recognize the credits, and it wasn't just him, it was my other kids too. The other ones gave up, they're like, forget it, they just went to college at 13 and 16. But they finally accepted him and never put him, they let him take the math class. And about 2 weeks later, I guess they realized after he was in their school that he wasn't a dumb little homeschool kid. I don't know how else to say it, because then they moved him from being in 8th grade. That was when they first started the program out at out there. So then they decided, oh man, put this kid in the robotics class, which Vern was great for him because he turned out to be a great mentor. But it was not only my experience, but my own family members who are homeschoolers in this area and their kids. I mean, my kids, and I can show you test scores. If I
No,
still
I'm
have
not
some
saying,
of them.
but you would certainly acknowledge that if you are going through that experience right now, your experience would be vastly different.
No, it wouldn't.
You don't think that it
I
would
know,
be any different?
No, because I talked to those parents, and I still have my own nieces and nephews that just graduated most recently. No, they are not, well, they are very much lesser than when they approach and want to be part of the school and be dual enrolled. No, they are not. They do not feel. They still feel like they have to jump through hoops and still, prove it. I guess you do have to have some sort of proof, right? But once you're around the kid, you can see. But no, they don't feel that way. And I wish there's so much advantage that they could have by being enrolled, a dual enrollment. So that's what I was saying, that I wish that somehow we could bridge that gap. Some people you're never going to bridge it, right? But there's a lot of kids out there that I think could be, take advantage of some of the things that we have, And then also those kids that don't fit, being able to have a path for them too, where they still, like, we can still, maybe grow the online through Mountain View or, something so they're still connected to the district,
Right.
And that's the other thing we talked about with this policy. Like, if we're going to withhold credit, and then we're jeopardizing graduation rate, especially with our kids that are juniors and seniors. You pull 6 credits, they don't have time in their schedule to make those up before graduation gets here. So rather than saying we're going to withhold credit, it's going to be that you send them, but if I can't say that you're no longer the right fit for us because you're not making it at like the high school on a regular basis, you're going to go to Mountain View because they might not have room. So now we've caught ourselves in that whole.
And that, they might not qualify.
Right.
They don't, the attendance is only one of the
Right.
5 and you need to have 3.
But if I'm going to take
Well,
their
they're-
credits away, now they're off
They
track to
qualify.
graduate and,
I really think we need a program like Bridge has where it's not Play-Doh, it's an actual course with learning materials and assessments.
100%
We just
with you on that one.
We just need somebody who we can dedicate to that to
Mhm.
build it, because that's really what we need.
So if a
one
student-
more layer to
if-
support
If
this.
a student
Yeah.
has
Losing kids.
IDLA,
Sorry?
so it would have to be something that somebody in our district created. It couldn't be something that was already there, like IDLA, with
I
somebody
mean,
in
we
our
could
district
use
proctoring it.
IDLA,
They're
but
our student.
if it's
Yeah,
for
that might be
IDLA, if
good.
it's not an advanced opportunity part, then parents have to pay for all those
I
credits.
see, so if it's a retrieval, so parents don't have to pay for Bridge?
No, it's a public charter school.
And
No,
I did hear for Brad.
they're still our student. IDLA?
Bridge.
Oh, I
was-
apologize.
I was asking if Bridge was a
Yeah.
paid.
IDLA's gone down to $40, and Brad thinks that it will actually become free in the next year.
Right.
What will?
Because
IDLA, because they actually fund IDLA on enrollment and not attendance.
Yeah.
So they're.
So they have more money than they
Imagine
do,
that.
Yeah.
than they're actually.
Now, our kids can our kids take part, kids in the district take part in IDLA and
Yes.
still be part of, okay.
They are part of us.
We have kids
Right.
who take, we have a couple students at Timberlake that I can just think of off the top of my head, who are taking a math course through IDLA, and then they do it in the library or,
A lot of our kids do things we don't offer.
And my
Like, they're
kiddo
taking
did
zoology.
IDLA over the summer, so that she wouldn't have to, she'd
Yeah.
free up room in her schedule for other classes.
Yeah,
So.
so what about those kids? What I'm thinking is, I know people that homeschooled their kids, that they just enrolled their kids in IDLA, but they were taking their kids all the way to Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls to,
yeah, they
Yeah.
can.
Should be ours.
And you can't,
Yeah,
and
and
you
you
can't
do
just.
IDLA if you're
you-
not enrolled in school.
Yeah, you have to be enrolled in a public school
But
to
they can take,
enroll
like,
in
if they were
IDLA.
interested in like, and I could be misspeaking, cause the high school stuff makes almost sense to me, but maybe there would be a couple classes that they're interested in taking at the high school, and then they'd be dual enrolled, and then they could take IDLA credits.
We've had kids
That's
take
right.
all
Yes.
IDLA classes.
They just-
No, but
Yeah.
she's talking about homeschool kids. Like, if-
No, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
But they enroll through us, so that
Yes.
they
Yes.
show up
Yes.
they show up as dual enrolled,
Yeah.
homeschooled, Timberlake High School, and then they don't actually take classes on our campus, they can do it through
Okay.
IDLA,
Yeah.
but you have to be affiliated with a public school.
now you would
Okay.
still run in that loophole of getting the homeschool credits transcribed
To become
to-
our student.
to become our student.
what do you mean,
Like with your homeschool that you have 24 credits,
Mhm.
right? And then you're gonna enroll at Timberlake.
Mhm.
And that process is we're going through all of those credits to transcribe them on a Lakeland Joint School District 272 transcript.
Right, and then they
and-
just merge, yeah.
Correct.
A lot of homeschools, what they do, when the kids get to a certain age, they become part of a school. Like they are literally enrolled in a school somewhere, and so there, you actually are accountable to a teacher. Your testing, all that, like
Yep.
you can administer the test to some degree, but all the tests go back to the teacher.
But
You know.
with regard to homeschool, I do think we also, if truly they're being homeschooled, but there are certain classes that the parents are not comfortable helping with, don't we allow them to dual enroll in non-diploma seeking, where we
Correct.
wouldn't actually have to transcribe
Correct.
their transcript.
Correct,
their
but I'm
grades.
saying like if to do the IDLA,
Right, but if you,
they're running down to Coeur d'Alene to become dual enrolled there.
right, they could do it through us.
Correct.
I'm just saying if it's a non-diploma seeking,
Correct,
they don't,
correct,
we don't
correct.
have to transcript their grades to be able to put them in IDLA.
Correct.
Okay.
And to your point, like the program that you were a part of, not of all of our homeschoolers come to us
Oh, no,
under
I
a
know,
program.
I
like,
understand.
we get transcripts on a notebook
Yeah.
paper.
Or
in-
boxes of
yeah, in-
papers.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm fully aware,
Petition,
yeah.
though, they can challenge a class.
correct, and take the
Yeah.
final.
So we,
Right.
all the time,
Yeah.
we'll have kids come in and they'll say, okay, we actually had one who went to ECPC online school, which I love. the name.
There's actually a name called
Yes,
ECPC.
and it was like that, it was on first, one on second, because I said,
Oh,
okay, and then where did you go for this year?
But then it was the
ECPC.
notice.
Okay, I'm glad it was easy. So he
The
challenged.
hard part is
Yeah.
And just took the final
Again,
to
like
school,
to
you know.
Shannon's point, when
Yeah.
she said like she.
It's
That's why I come back to your experience,
If it's just
which I
automatic,
understand.
get the letter,
If
and
we
then
have
she
kids
starts tailoring it,
at
and
the
then it's
Timberlake
not just-
attendance so
they get
that
the
are not
letter
having that,
and
I would like to know about
you know,
that.
so-
Because we take great pride in having the kid come in, having the fan meeting with them. I don't want anybody walking out of there thinking that, hey, I'm not listening to 'em, or I'm trying, no, we don't.
That's still on there, doesn't it?
Yeah, we don't.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
last
I
thing
try
that I want.
and, I try and communicate that to people, you
Yeah.
know, that there really isn't, like, nobody's gonna look over your shoulder and try and remove your children.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
feel like
that-
that.
I don't even know if teachers always know that the kids are dual enrolled as
Maybe we
homeschool
give
kids. They,
ourselves.
No,
they get a
now,
kiddo in their
a
class.
lot of our dual enrolled
Again, if you know
is
it's
the
been
arts,
out,
right? You're
but,
taking your art, you're doing your band. We don't have too many dual enrolled that are doing a core class.
Yeah, my kids were usually core class, well, they did do sports and they did do like
Yep.
the robotics stuff, but they did do core classes too. In fact, my friend, she was further north, and I remember, one of her sons in
I don't
10th
know,
grade or
like-
9th grade needed trigonometry, and they didn't even have anybody to teach, so they actually
And
hired,
it's just for secondary.
somebody video, and I think it was probably one of the first video things. It was like 30 years ago, you know, and he used to go up there and do video classes through the district.
They don't want to tie our hands.
Right.
And I don't, but maybe we need to have the number of days. Like
Can I ask a question? If this policy, if we like, holy cow, this is the bee's knees, we're gonna take it to the board. Would we implement that this semester?
Oh, I think you could.
No, we're,
I don't think we, so that's why I don't think we can implement it right now.
No.
So therefore, I think we got time on this, and I love policy committee meetings when it's a conversation.
Yeah,
Love
I
that.
agree.
And I wanna have more of this, so I'm not.
So you want to bring it back?
Again, I don't know if this is the answer. I like the direction that it's going.
I would
This-
just like 1 year. I think I've been doing this for 3 years now. Or
I
like
s-
1 year we get through all the annual
Oh, that won't
policies.
happen.
I say we
Just
bring this
just
one back
the
to RIF.
annual
I say we
policies.
No,
review the
Michelle and I've
RIF
been
one.
doing it for
Yep.
6
Shut your face.
and we haven't
The
been.
one?
Shut your face.
I
Well,
feel
we're
like the
still in the
last
one.
3 years we've gotten
Josh,
more systematic.
I do know, like, this
I
was,
feel like it's more
I
organized.
put this together
I
with
think I've been
about
doing
That it is.
Is it 3
an
years?
hour.
I think I've been doing it 4.
Shannon,
Yeah, 'cause this is my
Shannon
third
came
year.
in,
You were
reviewed over
definitely
it.
doing this one.
This is
This
far
my
from the
fourth.
answer.
I feel like-
I do know that.
And we will have gone through
It's
all the annuals.
better as far as the work going
if
through
we
petitions.
finish.
That's-
I'm
two
100%
that
on
are
board
on
with
here
that.
If I
And
had
if we're dealing with
300,
10 kids,
we're
Mike,
get- we're getting
to go
there.
back to that, that's
Well,
not
one
solving
thing I
the
can
issue.
say though is
100%.
all of these
But
policies
I-
say
right
now,
now
if we go to
are
this,
thorough,
if I could choose
and it's
between, I went with this because we have
full
something.
conversation.
Now I can spend my time working
Yeah, and
on it.
that's,
Correct,
that's the
100%.
hugest
Like I
part.
can free
And
up
the
my
community
day
has
time
to
to
So I
work
gave-
on
invite
for
people,
work.
and
Yes.
Michelle does a
I gave
really
you
good
guys,
job of
editing
getting
access.
like she'll read one
Yeah,
comment,
I think
she
I'm
goes
good.
I've got
back
it.
to the draft
So
to
I-
look
but I
to
said I
see
gave you
where does that
editing
fit and
Dude, editing
does-
access.
does it
I'm not
make sense?
editing,
Does it make
I'm not
sense?
editing.
Statute,
No,
does it
no,
make
no, no,
sense
no, no,
there?
I don't do
And
that.
if
I would
it's
call
a-
you.
If it's a great
Okay, well,
piece of advice, we
Yeah.
just
If you have a thought that you want to
Right.
add to it,
She's super
add it.
thorough that way, so
You'd have
everybody
to
has an
teach me how to do
opportunity.
that.
Right.
Plus
Just type
the
it.
thing.
Yeah, I think so. Everything.
What
that's
color
been
am I?
time to
Purple.
get out of this is
Purple.
much better.
Purple tower,
Much
baby.
better.
Purple.
And this is, I mean, this
This
is
is a big one.
significant policy.
This is a big one.
Search and seizure.
Yep.
You would have been, let me get another cup of coffee. Let's
Ramona's
roll.
getting the gloves.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
that's why
let's go.
I said, my granddaughters were trying to get me to stay. I said, I can't, I have to go to me. You can, don't go, Grandma. I'm like, no, I have to go because I made a big deal. I feel like I gotta show up. I better show up.
So are you telling us that next week you're gonna show up again?
No,
Yep.
we are gonna stay on 30-50 until we get it done, and then we will move.
Which one's 30?
Ramona can come, but
What's
Yes.
Huh?
This one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the one we'll be
But
here
what
next week.
happens sometimes is we flip around and then we'll come back to something like 3 months
I
later
won't
and
be.
like, oh, we already worked on this. Why did we stop?
Right.
And
Yeah,
then-
what
next
was
week
going
is-
on?
Right,
I'm
which
affiliated.
is why I
Yeah,
added
put you on
4
FaceTime.
because I'm like, I don't want to forget that they're hopefully 90% done.
I nominate
10 o'clock
Josh
at night
and
by then I'll
Dustin
be-
and Shannon if she wants to work together on this to kind of take what we've talked about today and kind of
Yeah.
wordsmith it, and because you do a really good job at
well,
putting it out
I
there.
got some resources that help. Trust me, what I actually handwritten was not this.
It's his resources wise, is that what you're saying?
The initial thoughts there, but
Then I think that when we get to the elementary one, it would be nice to have some elementary peeps here,
sure.
like teachers
Because
and
that world looks so
administrators.
different.
It does.
Shannon, do you feel like this is represented for middle school too, or do you feel like we would need to have middle school here? You feel like
Yeah, I
Okay.
think this will be good. Mhm.
did we ever vote or come to a conclusion on vacation / out of town?
We didn't. That's why I
We were-
think if
I think
you guys have to live
where
it,
I
so
think
if
we
you can-
landed
Just question
was
marks off.
what I think we landed was if we're told about it and we know and the parents, then it's an excused. And then those, if we know that these two, Becca's point, like that this, we know this kid is going to be an ongoing thing, then we're pushing them to the self-directed learner. That's where I feel like we kind of
If
ended
anything
up.
that
but-
this policy would do by doing it like Lynn's talking about is I'm getting communication from Lynn,
Yeah.
which that would be a win for me. I would be like, sweet sassy molasses.
Well, I was just thinking,
I call
you were
your
asking about the
little
vacation,
space.
and I looked at my calendar, and I have 4 kids gone between now and spring break on vacation. So, they'll be back before spring break, like 2 days, and then we go on spring break. So,
And it's, there's no easy answer.
There's
I just think we
not,
need to be on the same page, and if we're gonna say that we recognize families are gonna go on vacation, then let's put them in a category where it doesn't run when we run our attendance report, and we don't have to hand them a petition and say, oh,
Yes.
we know where you were at, thanks for going to, Hawaii.
Or we're not sending them the mean, mean gram letter that says,
Your credits have been withheld,
Right,
and
and
then you will
causing
not get them back
more
without completing the
undue
petition.
stress, because
Yeah.
when, like, what I don't love about those letters, and I didn't like at elementary, it's like, I mean, I don't know how many phone calls I had to say, like, well, yeah, Skyward just shot out a letter
Yeah.
because we put it, but I don't mean it, I'm not gonna do anything about it.
Mhm.
Well, then my word doesn't count, it doesn't matter, and now it's arbitrary, and then it's a hoop, and I hate
Plus
that,
the-
so.
The letters are kind of threatening and.
I mean, I feel like we've made them
And I
better.
think
but
I try to soften it.
We're not gonna do anything.
When I give it to them in
like
person,
that.
I get I forgot to do my attendance.
So it's a form.
So your vote would
Sent to your
be-
principal. I'm like,
Well, we
please,
have
we're
done,
not
I
gonna-
mean, you guys.
We
I'm
did.
busy.
We
We've
did.
done iterations of it, yeah, and
Would you- so would
just
your
saying like,
recommendation
you
be
have this limit and
not to
but
have
it's-
it included?
by the nature of it, it's gonna be
And
threatening
then-
because you're
and then-
telling them if you
I
have
would
more
say
absences,
if
this is
it
gonna
would
happen.
be considered
And
part of
again,
your
if
excuse,
we're
like-
not gonna do
Put them in
anything.
excused?
Yeah, why
Verified.
do it?
They're
Which is what
Any
I
threats
said.
don't- It's unrealistic ones that
Again,
I just think that we, our
legitimate
consensus from the people around us,
reasons, and,
they're not gonna
like, I can speak
deny
for
that,
my
then I'm not
And
gonna
at
waste
the
my
end of
time.
the
There
day,
are parents like,
it's not
I'm
like this
trying
thing's set in stone for
everything
life,
and
like,
Yeah.
we can put it on the
Instead of
verified,
this,
if it starts becoming an issue,
let
we
me
have all
just
these kids going
be
on all
one
these.
more barrier.
Yeah.
We'll change it.
Attempts to change it
How
to a
am I
different
helping
one,
you?
you
How am
know,
I
and
coaching you?
again, there's
How am
gonna
I
be
making
natural
this place inviting
consequences.
to the
Well,
parents
that's
for
just it, that's
solutions
the-
just because
You're gonna have that handful that,
it doesn't,
again, we're spending
everyone
a
where
lot
I
of
feel like
time
I
on the
had them
same
browbeat,
kids.
they didn't change it, they didn't.
Well, now with the
I mean,
vacation, I think
they
I took, when I ran it, I think I took vacation out.
Well, and now the
So
parents.
how many,
They don't
would
wanna
it
be
be if
there. I
you
mean,
put
I had
vacation
parents
in?
that would literally
I don't know.
call
Not very
me
many, I
and
ran the
say,
vacation
"You need
report
beach
only.
outside.
You did? How many are there?
And there wasn't very many
Yeah,
kids in
I-
there, they were, like, most of them were only 5, like, I didn't run the whole thing, I just, how many vacation codes went in, and then most that we had